Alright, so today we are working on a project that honestly I've been kind of dreading. Mostly because we didn't really have a good vision or idea of how we're going to do it, and we're just kind of having to figure it out and make it up on the fly, which we don't really like. If you know us, we're planners and we like to at least have a pretty good idea of what we're doing before we go into it, and in this project that's just not the case. So let's turn around and show you what we're working on, and that is what we're going to do with this area around our mini split and on the ceiling in here. And we have a couple issues to work through, mainly pertaining to all the curves. So it's not like on the side of the bus, it's just one nice curve. So when we were working on like the walls and the cabinetry for the closet and the pantry, you know, it's just kind of one curve. But up here, we've got multiple curves. So I don't know if you can see, it's probably really hard to tell on the camera, but the ceiling comes down here, and then it curves under, and then it curves again, and then it curves around the corner, and then it curves under here, and then it goes back into this like little tuck away corner. And so there's all of these like compound curves to deal with. And we also want, you know, the mini split to look like it's kind of built in somewhat. And so when we were kind of planning what we were going to do with our ceiling and how we were going to do something up here, we just had a lot of discussions about what to do, and we figured kind of our best shot is trying to do some cabinets, some just real shallow cabinets around the space, and it'll help kind of build this in. It'll give us storage for some small things, maybe maps or I don't know, sunglasses, small things, first aid kit, maybe some things like that, that we want to have kind of right by the door, right by the driver's area. But how do we do that with all of these compound curves? So we knew we were going to have to make a template of some kind, and we started by just trying to even just use like some craft paper and figure out how to work kind of under, because we want to support like the bottom of the cabinet up under this part, but then it has to go back in this corner, and then it has to come out, and then, but how do we like get a template back in there? And we have to deal with like the rubber around the window. The paper was just too flimsy. It didn't work. We tried cardboard, and again, it's just too hard to get something accurate. So of course we go to YouTube and look up how to make templates on like really crazy curves in awkward situations. And we're using a method that we found on there. So what we have done is we have basically marked kind of just with some tape on the side of our mini split and over here on the wall, kind of a reference point. And so we've already done just a little bit, I'll show you. We basically just cut a scrap piece of wood to fit in that spot, and because we just need something to reference off of when we're measuring. And then we are just taking little skinny pieces of scrap wood, and we're shoving them in as far as we can go, and then just brad nailing them up into this piece. And so when we're done, we should have that curve that creates all attached to our reference piece, that then we should be able to like make a clean curve from and use this then as a template for our actual bottom piece of wood to start this little small cabinet up here. So we don't know what we're doing, and we're hoping that this method works. So we're gonna continue working on getting this template made right now. All right, so here's what this crazy template ended up looking like. So it doesn't even look like that much of a curve, but it gets real steep over here, and then from here to here it's real steep, and it's tucked back around a corner, which is why we were having trouble with it before. And then there's like an angled piece right here. So now that we have kind of a rough template, we're gonna make a second step template out of cardboard. We're gonna try and transfer this to just a flat piece of cardboard, and then we'll kind of smooth out like that rough jagged edge at the top, and then try and go fit that in and see how well that fits, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so we made our cardboard template now, and this is what it turned out looking like. Looks really simple, but it was, you know, it was a little tricky to make with the wood, but we're gonna go ahead and test fit it now. And it seems to be fitting pretty much just right. Back here in the corner and up here against this, and it's going kind of all the way up. So I think this is going to be a really good starting point for the actual piece of wood. The next step is basically doing the same thing but around this edge. All right, so we made that second template for the side, and then we got a big piece of cardboard, combined the two pieces that we had made, like saw where they fit together, and overlaid them on another big piece of cardboard and made one big template for this kind of the bottom of the shelf. And then what we're gonna do is we put another piece kind of in here in the corner that'll provide some support, as well as kind of help us to deal with kind of the trouble spot, which is this area right in here. Like, this point is just where all the curves are coming together, and trying to figure out how in the world we would cover that with like ceiling material. We were really struggling with how we would do that with like wood slats and all of that. So by pulling this out just a little bit and kind of having a corner piece, what that allows is, though, even though this is shallow and this is kind of shallow over here, it means that this part is all going to be kind of covered and back behind that, back inside the cupboard. If we had kept this really shallow all the way to the ends, all of this would have shown up here in this corner, and we would have had a really hard time trying to finish that, I think. So the plan is this will be sort of our template for our wood, and it'll come across. We'll have a cabinet here, and then it'll just kind of angle over and then have cabinet space over here. But it should be kind of shallow enough to the point where no one's going to hit their head coming in, unless you're like, you know, 6'8". You might have to watch yourself right here in the corner. But I think this worked out pretty well. Now we have our template to lay on some plywood and make our bottom shelf for the cabinet, and have that as our starting point then to build our framework for the front off of. Alright, so we got this piece cut last night from our template. I mean, you can see it's like super wonky looking. But using that template method, sort of the multiple step process, worked out really well. And once this was all cut and we fit it, we just had to you know, sand a couple little parts of it, and it fit great. We didn't really have to make any major changes at all, just a little sanding here and there, and it was great. So we're getting ready to install this now. This side, this long side, is going to be held up by just some 1-inch aluminum angle that we've screwed into the, you know, into the metal of the bus. And then this part is going to be screwed up into this part above the windshield, and then I think we'll be ready to go to start working on building face frames for it. Okay, so we got the shelf all installed, and then we were terrible YouTubers and didn't record anything for a while. We actually had a friend here yesterday helping us, and we were just kind of having fun hanging out with him, and so we did not get the camera out or record anything. So I'll just kind of walk you through what we worked on. So we made these little cleats to attach our framing to all around, and these were a little fiddly, just trying to figure out the exact angle and you know, knowing exactly how high up to put them, and not really having like a good point of reference for, you know, what's straight in here, because everything in here is curved. But we think we did okay. This ended up being like a 49-degree angle on the back of these cleats, and it took us like 4 attempts to get that right. We tried 50, and we tried 52, and we tried 47. Finally ended up being 49. So we got some cleats all screwed in up and around, and then we went ahead and started making the frames. Now, we're doing this totally different than we did like the face framing on all the rest of the cabinetry on our pantry and closet and all of that. And that is mainly because these are so shallow. Like, we cannot even like get a screwdriver or anything or a drill back in here to like pocket hole things together. So what we decided to do, instead of making like rails and stiles and all the pieces separate and figuring out how to secure them, what we're doing instead is we basically made the whole frame like one big piece, and then we're gonna cut out the opening. So we haven't done that part yet, but we've started making the frame. So I'll kind of show you what we've started with. So like this is gonna go over here, and so we've got the angle cut for the ceiling and against the roof line, and the ceiling will come up and kind of just cover over that little edge. And so all of these are gonna hang down below the shelf, so everything is nice and even going all the way around, and you won't see like how crazy the shelves actually are. Alright, so we finally got all of our frame pieces made and painted, and they're ready to be installed, but we thought we'd show you the back side of them to show how we addressed like the crazy shelf in there and how it's not straight, but we're gonna make all of the bottoms straight. So if we turn around and come to the back, you'll see what we did is we routered out just a channel that shelf slides into. And so like this gives you a better idea. It's not like the shelf is not perfectly straight, but this will just kind of slide in, and then the shelf hangs down below it. So from the front, you won't notice anything at all. This will all be straight and they'll all be even. So you're not gonna be able to tell. And then the cabinet doors will come down, you know, I don't know, like a ½ inch from the bottom and fill up all this space. So once the actual cabinet doors are in, it'll look pretty normal. But that's how we addressed the shelf. And then this is one of the pieces that sits right next to the mini split. And we wanted to put a little header over the mini split, but it needs to be removable because back behind the mini split we have access to marker lights, and we also need to be able to, you know, access to lift up to clean the mini split out and pull the little filters out and all of that. So we needed that header piece to be removable. So what we did was on the back of the two frame pieces that are next to the mini split, we routed out a little section, cut a little piece of flat steel, screwed it in, glued and screwed it in, and then on the back of the header piece, we routed out a little section, and then we're gonna stick a really strong magnet in there. So it's just gonna magnetically attach to either side, so we can just pop it off. So we can access those lights if we need to, or if we ever needed to pull the mini split down or anything, we would have easy access to that. So that was sort of our solution for the shelf and that header piece. And now we're gonna go ahead and get ready to go install these. Okay, we're done. Woohoo! We struggled through these cabinets. I'm not gonna lie, just all the curves. Like, just the parts on the side weren't so bad, but trying to deal with the shelf and the corners and the curves at the top, and that it like slopes down this way, like it was, it just kind of kicked our butts a little bit. But they're done, and we are super happy with how they turned out. So we just basically glued everything up using the 3M 5200, and these things are like, I could hang on them. They are not going anywhere. Like, they are so strong up here. Like, they don't even budge. So you can see now with everything up that, you know, the bottoms are all nice and even with each other. And one thing is, obviously this side, I think we talked about this before, I can't remember. This little shelf is really shallow because of the door. We don't want anyone whacking their head. So this side is really shallow. So we'll just put, you know, pretty small things up in here. But this side, we were able to make wider, pretty significantly wider. So my kind of symmetry loving heart is a little annoyed. They're not exactly the same, but functionally this is just gonna work better for us, and I think it still looks nice. So this actually has quite a bit of storage space in here, and the first probably, I don't know, foot maybe or 8 inches of this cabinet is going to be our lighting control center, where all of our home automation stuff comes into play. And so right now we have all of our wiring for all of that lighting stuff just sitting up here waiting for us. But you can see by the way we brought the faces down below the shelf up underneath that we were able to hide all of our mini split, the line set for the mini split up underneath there. So when you're just standing here, you can't see it at all, which is great. We still have to tuck a few more wires, but we were also able to mount 2 of our security cameras up in here. We've got our dash cam up in front, mounted back up, like it's attached to that shelf. And so that's for our dash cam. And then we have another camera, security camera tucked up right here that is facing the front door. So we still have to do a little bit of wire management back here for some of that. But we're really happy that kind of our vision of being able to hide that line set by using the shelf and the faces with, you know, an overhang here worked to hide all of that. For this header up here, so this is the little header that we hope kind of gives the mini split a little bit more of a finished built-in look. So you can see that the magnet thing worked, and oh, one of them popped off right here. But here's the back side of the header. And we ended up actually having to use 2 of these strong magnets instead of just one. One worked, but it would kind of slide down, you know, like 1/2 inch, maybe 1/4 of an inch. It would just kind of hang out. It would stick, but it would just kind of slide down and hang out where there was a gap at the top. So we just added another magnet to each side. And now we can just really easily put this up here and attach it to those steel bars. And that just stays up there. We've got enough of a gap up here to allow plenty of airflow. And we can just pop this off if we need to access the space behind it for the lights or to remove the mini split. But overall, I mean, obviously, again, the cabinet doors are not going to be done until later. We're going to do all of those for like the closet and the pantry and all of this all at the same time. But for now, this is done, and we're really pleased with how this turned out for storage, as well as addressing kind of the curve of the ceiling and just making the mini split look a little bit more like part of the bus. So we are gonna wrap this up, call this one done, check it off the list, and I think we're moving on to some plumbing next.